Welcome, Anna Collins here for Imagine Crafts. Today we're creating a mini slimline card. Let's go over the products I use. From Gina Marie Designs, we're going to use this die of this chair. From the Maker's Movement, we're going to use the Sarcastic New Year, but all we're going to use are the fireworks. From Hero Arts, we're going to use the Happy Everything, and we're going to use the word happy. And from Recollections, we're going to use this July and 4, that's a planner stamp. From Imagine Crafts, we're going to use fireworks and bamboo leaves, in Summer Sky, and in Danube Blue. These are fun sprays. We're going to use embossing powder called Shimmering Night Sky, and I went ahead and mixed it with a little bit of silver and a little bit of iridescent. I wanted it to be very colorful and very shimmery. Alright, we're going to make our mini slimline, which this card panel here is cut to 3 by 6, and our card base is 3 1/4 by 6 1/4. We're going to use the VersaMark ink for our stamping, and I went ahead and die cut our chair in red, white, and blue. So let's get started with our card front. For this panel, I'm going to use a piece of copy paper that I've torn to get an uneven edge to create our grass. Just going to lay it here and use it as a mask. We're going to shake up our bamboo leaves, make sure all the mica powders that are in there are nice and shaken up and mixed, and then I'm going to spray it onto our card panel. I'll use my heat tool to heat set it, make it go quicker because we're on film, but if you don't have a heat tool, you just have to let it sit and dry for a few minutes. And I heat it from both the top and back so to minimize my warping. Once that's set, we're going to do our sky. So I'm going to bring in that same piece of scrap copy paper that I tore, and I'm going to use it to mask off the bottom. I'll hold that in place, and then I'll start out with Summer Sky, which is a lighter blue, and then we'll add the darker blue. This will create nice dimension and depth to our sky. And it's also not super dark. And yes, I got some on my fingers. I don't mind my fingers being inky. It washes off. But if you don't like that, you can wear gloves. Now I had a little spillage here, but that's alright because I'm going to heat set it and I'm going to spray a little bit more green and it'll be covered. Also my chair will be there so it'll hide any imperfections. So now let's go ahead and stamp our fireworks and our sentiment. I'm going to bring in the chairs just so I can get my placement correct for my sentiment and my fireworks. I'm going to use my magnets here to hold my panel down. I'll arrange my chairs in the correct order. And then I'll start placing, I want one firework on the right and one on the left, leaving the center for our sentiment. Take a few minutes to adjust this, and once I have it there, I'm going to go ahead and ink it up and stamp it. We'll be doing embossing, that's just why we're using the VersaMark ink. I'm going to nestle the July underneath the happy between the H and the A and the P, and then the 4 we'll put between the 2 P's. But it's a small stamp and it keeps moving on me. So I'll start stamping first with the happy and the fireworks, and then I'll work in the July and the 4. So I'm going to go ahead and use my VersaMark ink up those stamps. But before I, before I do that, I'm going to use some embossing powder on here, which anti-static powder, I should say. Excuse me. And I'm using a makeup brush, it's called a kabuki brush, to spread my embossing anti-static powder on my panel. So I'm inking it up and pressing it down, getting a nice even coverage. And I'm going to do it again just to be sure, because I noticed that the word happy, the tail end of the Y wasn't quite coming up. I'm going to go ahead and sprinkle my embossing powder here, which I told you I mixed Shimmering Night Sky, Silver, and Iridescent. So it gives you a little bit more different feel. It's not too dark or too light. Now we're going to go ahead and stamp the July and the 4. Making sure to nestle them within the happy. Excuse me. And I told you that 4 was not cooperating. It just kept coming up and not sticking to my platform at base at all. Alright, finally got that going. We're going to stamp that down and we'll spread the embossing powder onto that, and then we'll heat set this embossing powder. And I'm going to start heat setting it from the bottom, and then I'll move to the top. I do this because there's a lot of glittery or shimmery particles in this embossing powder, and I don't want it to fly off. So I start from the bottom, and then I continue to the top. And I use that handy dandy clothespin, tool. That's an expensive tool right there, to hold my panel and keep my fingers from getting too close to the heat tool. Now our panel is done, and I realize I need a little shadowing on my letters. So I'm going to bring in my Memento marker, and I'll just do a little bit of shadowing behind each of the letters. I cut most of this out so that you don't have to watch me do it. But basically I just trace little areas of it. So now I'm going to bring in our Terra tape and our on-point glue so we can go ahead and put our card together. I'll use the Terra tape on the back of our card panel here. I'm using nice 3 strips of it. I'll peel off the backing and adhere it to our card base, which I've opened and laid flat because it makes it a lot easier to adhere our card panel to it. Get it centered. And then I'll use the on-point glue to adhere our chairs. And I'll use some tweezers just to help me hold the chairs to get that, so I don't get glue on my fingers. The precision nozzle is great for this, for these small little things like this. So repeat the process on all 3 chairs. Get that middle one centered as best as possible. And then we'll add our blue. And then we'll finish this card off with a few tiny little stars that are hard to see on camera, right on the film right here, but up close are perfect. They just add a nice little twinkle just so in the background. So I'm going to go ahead and add those little stars here. Making sure my card is a little warped because of the heat setting and all the moisture, but once I lay it flat for a little bit, it will stay. It will stay flat. Alright, so I'm going to add a little drops of on-point glue. And use my tweezers to adhere those little tiny stars. I use some clear ones and some baby blue ones. And just about 4 or 5 of them. I didn't use many. And now our card is complete. So here we have the shimmering fireworks on our sky. A nice subtle sky and some grass with some summer chairs. If that doesn't scream July 4th, I'm not sure what else would. So today we use our Terra tape, our on-point glue, some fireworks sprays in summer sky, Danube blue, and bamboo leaves, our embossing powder, and VersaMark ink. As always, I'll have everything linked in the description box below. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel so you can find more inspiration from our design team. I hope you found some inspiration.